3, a 2, a 1. I was fake frozen for all of you. They were worried that your Wi-Fi wasn't working. That was just me playing around. Welcome one, welcome all. Welcome Mary E. Brown, clinical oncology dietitian specialist at Johns Hopkins Kimmel Cancer Center. How are you today?
Chef, I'm great. How are you?
You know, the coffee is just raging through my veins right now. We are currently in Los Angeles, California. For those of you that have joined us before, this may look a little bit different. We're normally, as we're based in Austin, Texas, but yesterday it was 108 degrees and I think 1,000% humidity. So we decided to spend that summer here in Los Angeles. And I think we made the right decision because it's beautiful here in California. And for those of you that have been with us before, like always, I absolutely want to know where you are watching from. And if you have any questions that are sort of teasing your brain, either for me as a chef, Chef Nathan Lyon, or for the highly educated, highly knowledgeable Mary Eve Brown, just type those questions in the comment and we will get to it. Now, another voice you may hear is this voice.
Good afternoon, everybody, and good morning.
This is, or good evening. We have no idea where you're watching from. That is Sarah Foreman, and she will be making sure that everything runs really smoothly and makes it so that we can communicate effectively. And a huge thanks, of course, to Debbie's Dream Foundation for making all this possible. And yeah, that's what we do. We do a lot of cooking. So, Mary Eve, let me know if you're ready to get going and if you have any thoughts or questions or concerns this morning before we start turning things on and getting down and dirty. What do you think?
I think we're ready to rock and roll, Chef.
I've got my knife. It's sharp. One of the very first things we talk about is having a very sharp knife. And I'm not using the oven today because even though it's in the middle of summer, we're still thinking ahead as far as what we can cook. Either here in summer, early fall, depending upon where you are. And if you're in south of the equator, I mean, darn, it's the middle of winter. So we make sure that we're sort of always on the border of what you can find either in your farmer's market or in your local grocery store all year round, okay? So one of the things I'm gonna start on, we're making 4 dishes today. So we're gonna do a little dance. Some of the things I'm gonna make, and let those cook for a while. I'm going to jump to the next thing, let those cook, maybe have a little dessert for you. That sounds really nice to end your meal with something sweet. But because it is early morning here in Los Angeles, California, I thought I would get started on a sweet potato hash. Now, sweet potato hash, bunch of vegetables, throw it in a pot, and you may even throw a little fried egg or a poached egg on top of that. That sounds lovely. So let's get started with that. Sweet potatoes, one of my favorite vegetables, also quite healthful, as you all know, depending upon the color. And actually, Mary Eve, I would love for you to talk a bit about this. When you look at sweet potatoes, either at your grocery store or your farmer's market, that may look like a small version of this one. But as it turns out, what I like to do is scrape my finger on it to see what the true color is on the inside. This one is a ruby, so it's this beautiful orange color, and this one is white. So Mary Eve, while I cut this up, can you tell a little bit about the health benefits to having the white or the orange or using the peel at all?
Yeah, so thanks, Chef.
Of course.
Potatoes get a bad rap. I feel like people are like, don't eat potatoes, but potatoes are full of potassium, they're full of minerals, full of beta carotene, which is a precursor to vitamin A, which is also a cancer fighter. But if you are going through treatment right now or soon after gastrectomy, peeling them is going to be super duper important, like Chef is doing, with his magical peeler that goes both ways.
It's actually, thank you for pointing that out, Mary. This is one of the things that people don't know is when you have a peeler, whether it's the old school one that's metal that usually hurts your hand, that was a hand-me-down from your grandmother, get rid of it. They always have 2 blades. You have one blade for right-handed people and another blade for left-handed. So I always like to use both blades, and I'm actually saving myself, what is that, 50% of the time, and I'm using both blades so one blade never gets dull. I'm sorry to cut you off, Mary.
No. I love it. You know me and a kitchen tool. So, and good kitchen tools, right? I'm not going to buy bad kitchen tools. So potatoes are really easy to digest. So they work really well if you're in treatment and you've got a queasy tummy or or you're soon after surgery, you can definitely do potatoes, just peel them. I also like, I don't know if you've ever seen, are you doing like a garnet yam? Is that what you've got?
This is a garnet, correct.
So real sweet potatoes are white. So sometimes we have sweet potatoes, sometimes we have yams. They all go under kind of the same category. But I like the variety of color. I think that's really important because each color gives me a different cancer fighter. So you want all of the rainbow in the colors.
Absolutely. And I've even seen purple sweet potatoes, which is just gorgeous. Usually around, I'm already getting emails from people about Thanksgiving because people always freak out with Thanksgiving. And one of the things that's a huge benefit about being here in Los Angeles is we do have access to international types of produce. We have a lovely, I guess it's an tiny African ethnic grocery store just down the street from where we are in central Los Angeles. And it was the first time I actually saw a yam. Like candied yams are still sweet potatoes here in the US. If you have a yam, it should be about that big around and about this long. It is absolutely massive. It tastes a lot like just a regular white potato, which is wonderful. So what I'm doing right now is I'm slicing up a leek. I'm sure if you've never used a leek, maybe you've walked by them in the grocery store and you thought, too much effort. Leeks are lovely. They have a really lovely flavor. They actually have this sort of, I don't want to say slime, but what happens is in the leaves, you have this wonderful natural thickening process. So if you have a soup that's a little on the thin side, you can use leeks instead of onions. It's a natural thickener. And of course, using Mary Eve's favorite immersion wand, you can just blitz the heck out of them. So it's a lot easier to digest. So what I've done is I've simply cut one in half, discarded the darker, kind of the darker part of the green, and I'm just simply slicing up this white and very light green because it has a more mild flavor, and it's also a smaller one. I find that the smaller leeks, the tinier, thinner ones, are a little more tender. So when they cook up, they're not quite as chewy and not quite as fibrous. So they're actually quite lovely. So I'm doing a nice
Chef,
thin
the other thing,
slice.
sometimes people think if it's white, it has no nutritional value. But
Mm.
actually, leeks are in the allium family, which is also
Yes.
garlic and onion, and they have natural antioxidant properties to them, antimicrobial properties to them. So even though it's white, it comes from the planet, it's going to have health benefits. And I
Yeah.
love that leek and potato mashup is just so lovely. And leeks can be really easy to digest if they're cooked right.
True, absolutely. And then you have this gorgeous sucker, because when you have this deep, deep orange, the thing is, what I tell parents, which is kind of fun, is if their kids don't like to eat vegetables, this is actually true. If your kids eat a lot of dark orange, things like sweet potatoes and definitely carrots, their skin will start to turn orange.
Turn orange.
So I always tell people's kids that don't like to eat vegetables, I said, if you want to get back to your parents, you want to get at them. You want to really get at your parents. You eat a lot of carrots and sweet potatoes, and you'll slightly turn orange and they might panic. And sometimes kids can be a little deviant in the brain, and they'll take me up on it. They'll start to eat a lot of vegetables. So what I like to do is the best way or safest way to cut a sweet potato or anything that's more round than square is what I did is I sliced a tiny little portion of the sweet potato off so that it sits flat. Otherwise, they're just sort of rolling around, and I get really nervous when people are cutting as things are rolling around. So I have a nice flat surface, which gives me the opportunity to then slice straight down on whatever it is you're cutting. Of course, now being a sweet potato, just cut straight down these parallel slices. And then all I'm going to do now is just stack them up like little decks of cards, and then cut across them about a 1/4 inch. And then I'll go ahead and cut across again to make these little squares. All right. So as far as sweet potatoes are concerned, what about the health value of steaming or roasting or boiling, Mary Eve?
So the recommendations are for vegetables. We should have 2 to 3 cups of vegetables every day, and some of them raw and some of them partially cooked. So and I think you're going to do this, but what I like about particularly with people who are in treatment, soups and stews can sit really well. Well, if I am boiling a vegetable in a liquid and then I drink that liquid, I'm getting the nourishment into me. So I love that. And of course I love blending everything because that's just easier digestion, overall. Roasting, yep, perfect. You just don't want to overly cook something in water and then pour that water out, because all that nourishment that you were supposed to get into your body, it went down the sink.
Fantastic, good to know. Well, in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take advantage of whatever water is actually in these sweet potatoes and in the leeks. And as I'm cooking this hash down, I'm making it slightly sweeter because we're caramelizing the vegetable. And I'm simply going to cover it with a lid. For those of you that are cooking something, certain vegetables, you want them to break down faster. What will happen is, instead of steaming them, if you don't feel like setting up your whole steaming apparatus, you can actually just put a lid on it, okay? Just like that. It's a little quieter in your kitchen. And also what happens is the steam comes up around the sides and drips down. The vegetables are less likely to burn, so you can kind of do other things. And also it's going to cook it through, because steam is going to be a really fast way to sort of break down the tissue of those vegetables. So that's kind of doing its thing. Olive oil, that leek and the sweet potato on a small dice. And I'm just going to put that to the side, okay? Next thing I'm going to move on to is asparagus. We still have asparagus here at farmers markets that we grabbed up. Now, I don't have the education that Mary Eve does. So Mary Eve, how is asparagus as far as peeling or not having asparagus? Or is it one of those things that your clients should be eating?
Yay! Okay, so asparagus tips are really easy to digest. So they can
Okay,
work
great.
anywhere in your journey.
Okay.
And they have this powerful anti-cancer thing called glutathione. And
That sounds like the future. You just went into the future. You got something called what you said, and you just
glutathione.
Yeah,
So
we can all benefit
glutathione
from that.
is a powerful cancer fighter that we find in asparagus. So getting those asparagus in, yeah. The woody tip part, I either peeling it or breaking it where it's its softest point. And then you can definitely take that rootier part and make a soup out of it, or use it in a different way. But the tips is really the part for our gastric cancer patients that are the easiest to digest. And if you like it, you should be eating it for cancer fighting.
Okay, fantastic. One thing about asparagus, learning from farmers that grow it, is that they have a tendency to breathe a lot. And so when you get an asparagus, think of your asparagus, fresh asparagus, like you would fresh seafood. You don't buy seafood on a Sunday and then eat it that Friday. You don't let it sit around for a long period of time. What happens is really fresh asparagus is very sweet. And as asparagus ages, as it breathes in your refrigerator, it has tends to get more acidic and less sweet. So you want to go ahead and use it whenever you get it. So if I buy asparagus, say yesterday evening, I'm going to go ahead and use it today and tomorrow at best. And the best way actually to store asparagus is in a micro perforated bag. I always see people putting asparagus in one of those things with water and just putting it in the refrigerator. Actually, you're encouraging it to breathe through that oxygen and burn through that sugar faster. So the best way to do it is just to wrap it in a plastic bag, put it in your crisper drawer, and then eat it as quickly as possible. Okay. So the asparagus that I had here today.
I was wondering what you were making.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. What am I even making? By the way, who the heck am I? Hello. I just mentioned my name in passing. It's a pleasure to meet you. If this is our first date, let me know. If this is our third date and you're still here, well, I must have said something right. My name is Nathan Lyon. I'm from Arlington, Virginia. I am the youngest of three boys. I have a health science degree with a public health minor. I was a medical technician, went to culinary school. I've been cooking on television for 15 years, and I have an Emmy nomination. I used to have hair. It was dirty blonde. End of story. That's it. I mean, that's really it. So getting back to the asparagus, the way to pick asparagus also, you want the straightest asparagus. This asparagus has been sitting in a very dark warehouse for a long period of time. After they cut the asparagus, they run it through ice cold water and they lay it down. And what happens is over time, even a couple of days, it wants to find the light. So if you see asparagus that's growing and looks really kind of weird, like this one, the tip's starting to grow, that's probably a little old. Another way to look at it is the bottoms. If the bottoms are like old and pocked, just let those go, okay? So the best asparagus are nice tight tips, very thin, I mean, maybe like rigid as far as straight. And whether it's a fat asparagus or a thin asparagus, they're all gonna be fresh. The big hearty ones are not older than the thin ones. They're just from an older plant, but they're both really, really fresh. Okay.
Oh my God, I learned something. Hey, the other thing is, and you also alluded to is a farmer's market, right? So when something is harvested, when a produce is harvested, it immediately starts to lose its nutrition.
Right.
So if I am buying something that's grown in another part of the world and had to get on a boat or a plane, or I don't know how it got to me, it's lost its nutrition. But if I am buying something that's in my area, it's going to have more nutrition in it because it's going to be harvested and then on my plate in a very quick period of time.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. But the great thing, and I think Mary was talking about this, is when you're buying in season. So if you have a farmer's market, absolutely go. Because when you're buying in season, it has the most flavor. So from a chef's perspective, yeah, it has the most nutrition and it costs the least. And your body is supposed to be physiologically eating that thing during that time of the season. So for example, right now it's, it's summertime in North America. We have a lot of stone fruit. We have a lot of fruit, period. So tomatoes, peaches, watermelon, all those things can be eaten raw. You don't have to cook them like you would, say, winter squash or root vegetables. And so it's just Mother Nature saying, eat this right now. It's going to be the most nutritious for you. And it actually is. And it has the most flavor. And again, you can save a couple bucks along the way. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm starting this asparagus soup, a little bit of olive oil, a touch of butter. I'm throwing that in there.
Well, you get that in there. I have a question from Mary E.
Yes, please.
Question is, I've had some changes with my new diagnosis and treatment, some good, some not so good. My one not so good change is I have no energy. What can I do to help my energy?
So that's a pretty common side effect to most treatments is fatigue. Like I get up, I get a shower and I got to sit back down because I'm so tired. And it's normally two things can be happening. And these are two things you could do to help yourself. One is to make sure you're really well hydrated. Anything caffeine free can count. And if you take your body weight, divide it by 2, that's the ounces of fluid you need to be drinking every day. So if I'm 200 pounds, I need 100 ounces of fluid every day. So 1, am I drinking enough? Number 2, protein. So during treatment, after surgery, your protein needs are double. And so if you're not getting the protein that you need, what happens is the body still needs it to repair itself. It's going to burn its own protein stores, which is your muscle mass. And it's your muscle mass that I say gets you up and out, gets me out of a chair, gets me out of bed, gets me, moving through my day. If I don't have that and I'm burning my own stores to support myself, everyday activities, again, are exhausting. I get a shower and I got to lay back down. So fatigue is pretty universal with cancer treatment, post-op. The 2 things you can do for yourself. Number 1, I'm hydrated. I'm drinking enough fluid, half my body weight, caffeine free. And the other is I'm getting protein in. And the protein needs are higher than normal, and it needs to come through the day. So it has the body has about a cap. It'll use protein in a way to replace healthy tissue. It's about 30 grams. So as you're moving through the day, you want some protein at breakfast, lunch, snack, dinner. You want that protein to come in through the day to meet the demand of the body.
30 grams for the whole day?
30 grams at a time.
Okay.
Holy moly.
Yeah. So again, if you take your body weight and divide that by 2, that's pretty close to the amount of grams of protein you need in a day as well.
Wow.
So, and then but you can't do it all at one time. Like I had a patient yesterday, he was, God bless him, he was drinking a 42-gram protein shake. And I'm like, okay, well, 12 of that's going to be used for something else, but 30 of it's going to be used for your muscle mass. And he has lost quite a bit of weight. So we came up with a new plan to get the protein in an appropriate amount throughout the day instead of all at one time. I can't get all that protein in at one time and to be used appropriately.
Wow.
And your body just simply won't absorb all that protein? Is that what happens and it just gets flushed out?
No, it'll get used for something else. It won't be used to support strength and
Okay.
tissue repair.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for that. I clearly need to be drinking less coffee and more water, or just more water is what I'm gathering also. Because you're saying that, okay, the ounces don't work if it's coffee, so I need to drink more water. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, you're chronically dehydrated. I can feel
Oh,
it.
I absolutely I am. I do not. Yeah, that is true. Okay, so where we are right now, it's starting to smell really good in this kitchen, by the way. So I had a little bit of butter, a little bit of olive oil, and what I did is I simply rough chopped some shallot, a little bit of shallot, some garlic. I went ahead and rough chopped that as well. This recipe isn't about knife skills because what we're going to do is we're going to put it in a blender. I'm just gonna blitz the heck out of it into a lovely soup, okay? I just wanna go ahead and get some of the flavors from those essential oils into that fat of the butter and the olive oil. And you saw me peel these little Yukon Gold potatoes, okay? Is there ever a time, depending upon when you would not want to peel the Yukon Gold potatoes because the nutrition that's in the skin, Mary?
Yeah, if you're doing well without having any nausea or diarrhea or early satiety, which just means I fill up pretty quickly, you want to try to eat the peels of things. That's
Got it.
fiber. The nutrition can be close to the skin. It doesn't mean it's not throughout the whole item, but if you're able to, yes, eat the skins of things. It's just our gastric people sometimes can't because of all the issues with digestion and treatment and surgery.
Got
Yeah, I
it.
love a
Sure.
Yukon Gold.
Yukon Gold is really lovely. What we're doing, the purpose of the Yukon Gold here today is just a little bit of flavor, but it's mostly texture. One of the things you had mentioned earlier, Mary Eve, is that lovely potato and leek soup, classic combination. And what we're doing here is the potato is going to be used as a thickener in addition to, the whatever vegetable that you're choosing. If you don't have asparagus, you could use cauliflower. Don't have cauliflower, you could use, like a winter squash. There's so many different things that you can use for this soup. It's just a lovely baseline in order to get some more nutrients inside. If you want to do sweet potato instead of potatoes, you can absolutely do that with this.
Pumpkin,
Absolutely. And just like crank open that can. I mean, they're still on the shelves. Some wonderful pumpkin. And you probably wouldn't even have to use the potato in that case, to be honest with you. So it's just really, really simple.
I
All
find
I'm doing is
Yukon Gold to be velvety.
they absolutely can. And what we're doing is we're breaking this up. We're getting some lovely, other way around, we're getting some lovely caramelization on that shallot and on that garlic. And just like we talked about before, you can absolutely turn that down to low, sort of let whatever moisture that's in those potatoes steam themselves, break them down. Let's check on this other one, the sweet potato hash. Now, when you look at this, you can see the top of this glass container lid is actually just covered in steam. That's great, okay? That just shows that these are broken down really well. They're they're just dreamy. This is a wonderful sign. You can put some fish over top of this. I love an egg on top for breakfast. Really simple. Another thing I want to add to this, and we can talk about this, Mary Eve, is kale. I just happened to see some fresh curly kale at the farmer's market. What I did was took the kale, okay? All I did was take it by the tip or the stem, the heart of your stem, and I grabbed the leaves and I just stripped it off like a sock. And then I just went ahead and pulled this apart or rough chopped it, okay? So that makes work a lot easier. This is ready. By putting the lid on, steam encapsulated all that steam, things cook through faster. I'm going to grab this whole thing of kale, which does break down pretty readily. Depending upon how kale is for your digestion, you could use anything else. You could use spinach if you wanted to. And maybe that's a little bit easier for people to digest. What do you think about that, Mary?
Yeah, I would do like baby spinach, like the really the really tender leaves. Kale is going to be a little bit hard for some people, but I love this idea of baby spinach. I think that could go in it super easy, or leave the green out and maybe just do the potato and the leek can work.
100%. Mary Eve, kale is dead to me. It does not exist. It is absolutely dead to me. I will never use the word again. I'm kidding. No, you're right. You're exactly right. I mean, if you wanted to do just that egg with this lovely sweet potato,
Put an egg on top.
Put an egg on top, and your breakfast is already well underway. I mean, you're really, really done.
I think chard would be the other thing. Maybe chard is pretty. I find
chard, it's lovely. It's super easy. It's beautiful. For one, it has all this, gorgeous colors. A rainbow chard, which is really, really nice.
What about like a bok choy, something like that?
Oh yeah, a baby bok choy.
Okay, just some more delicate greens. Got it.
Good job, Sarah.
Thank you.
She's on top
I'm
of it.
learning.
She's got this whole thing going on. And if you were to use baby bok choy or baby spinach, now would be the time to add a little bit of acid. I add a little bit of kosher salt on top. Salt's completely up to you. What I like to do is add a little bit of apple cider vinegar. I just think it's a really lovely balance. The acid as far as to your palate isn't too strong, and it balances everything out. And a little bit of fat with the butter and olive oil. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a touch of apple cider vinegar and put the lid on and just let that go. Just let it go.
I tell people, if you've not liked a leafy green like that before, add some acid to it. It's going to take the bitterness out and bring the sweetness forward.
Big time, big time. I mean, it's looking pretty good, right? So I'm gonna put this lid on, sort of set it and forget it. Let's take a look at these potatoes. Got some good color going on in there, which looks lovely. It smells amazing. And now, right now is the time I'm gonna go ahead and add some stock. You can do chicken stock, you can do vegetable stock. Get ready for the applause. The thing that happens. You can do chicken stock, vegetable stock. I'm gonna add some asparagus, all right? The asparagus toward the tips, as you were saying, Mary Eve, or
They're easier to-
peeled,
Yep.
or the
easier-
bottoms peeled away.
And the other idea also, if you're having a hard time getting protein in, could we do that with a bone broth?
You absolutely could. You absolutely could. And it's all sort of a personal preference at that one. You know, that I'm a huge fan of homemade chicken stock. You know, we'll even go out and get a rotisserie chicken and then just save the bones. And then, you know, put them in the freezer, got a couple, the legs and the wings and the back as far as the chicken. And then just go ahead and throw it in with whatever vegetable scraps I have and make a lovely chicken stock. And when I pull it out and chill it, it's like a rubber ball. It's just
Yeah.
so much deliciousness to
The
it.
gelatin,
The gelatin, and it's I've already paid for it. So it's one of these ways of really boosting your nutrition, you know, making sure you don't pay a lot of money for like the best flavor and best nutrition available. I really do like that. If you don't choose to do that, I like Better Than Bouillon, that one company. The jars are about this big, and you just go ahead and take like a teaspoon, you plop it in there, and you're good to go as far as flavor is concerned.
Yeah, and you can buy some pretty good bone broths already made, but if you're going to do what Chef just said, I also add a little bit of acid to that, and then I do it in a crock pot over 24 hours
Hey, yeah.
in
Does
my
that-
garage. In my garage, 'cause
Does
it's-
that- You're walking, you're like, gosh, it's really steamy in here. What's going on? I love it. I love this. Well, again, you know, for those of you that have been with Mary Eve and I before, you've been hearing all about this lovely Debbie's Dream Foundation nationwide tour bus thing. I mean, it's still in the works clearly since we're not on the road. That would be amazing. But to be able to cook with you one day, Mary Eve, is going to be quite a joy. Okay.
Agree.
I've got a couple things going on. Rest assured that unless you talk incessantly, nonstop like I do, and just get pumped about cooking, you will be able to make all the things I'm making today exponentially faster. Just know that in your heart of hearts, okay? I'm sort of going around, you know, pointing things out, but you know, a lot of these recipes are pretty straightforward. It's a one-pot wonder, and we're good to go, okay? Now, one of the other things, speaking of potatoes, and I did peel these red potatoes, I went ahead and cooked about 2 pounds of the smaller or medium-sized red potatoes in simmering water. None of them split, but I pierced them with a fork because that's how I know they're truly done instead of a knife. I used the tines of a fork, let them cool, and I simply peeled them. And that's where I am here. I'm making a German-style potato salad, okay? So I went ahead and just to save time, went ahead and simmer them. You can keep them in the fridge if you want. And it's really simple to make because we have a very large bowl into which I'm going to go ahead and make the dressing first. Now it's really great because a lot of salads you want to make like a la minute. You want to go ahead and dress them the moment that your guests arrive or the moment you just feel like having a salad, which is great. I'm going to make the dressing and put it in the bowl, and then you can put everything else on top of it and just keep it in your fridge until you're ready to dress it and just toss it all together, which makes it so much more streamlined as far as eating. So I have potatoes. I also went ahead and cooked some bacon, and I just pulled them out of the fat. If you're from the South, well, it's up to you. You can have a tiny little container of fat, which makes me kind of wiggly. I don't know the camera for that. But
That's how I grew up. It was the Crisco canister next to the stove that my mom would just put the bacon in every day.
Exactly. And you take a scoop of it out, and you put it back in, Wow. Anyway,
I told you my popcorn story. We grew
no,
up
do
popping
tell.
popcorn on top of the stove in bacon fat,
Wow.
and then putting some Parmesan cheese on top of it.
Wow.
I feel like
That's gourmet.
I've grown up in a cave. I don't know what happened. My household was like, my mom would give us carob and tell us it was chocolate. Clearly, it was not chocolate, it was carob. So that was the household I grew up in. Perhaps that's why I, have a tendency to eat on the healthier side. Shallots, I went ahead and cut a couple shallots, diced them pretty small. I'm gonna put this inside of the bowl, all right?
I've got a question for Mary Eve.
Please.
Question is, how can I get my family on the same page as me? My family and friends are wonderful, but very, very picky about what and how much I eat. Any tips?
Yeah, also another really common problem that can be upsetting on both sides, the caretaker and the patient. So the caretaker's like, just eat it. Like, why can't you eat it? And why can't you eat more of it? And the patient's like, just leave me alone. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. So we can have reduced appetite, we can have upset tummy, we can have no tummy. I mean, there's all kinds of things that I don't think that the caregiver can understand what the patient is going through. So kind of how I tell my team, my caretaker and my patient is, caretaker, your job, prepare food. Patient, your job, eat what you can, and take the discussion away. Because the more there's discussion about it, the more the patient's going to shut down and be like, I don't want to talk about this anymore. And it can set up a negative. The other thing I tell patients is that tell the caregiver the amount that you want. So if I bring a huge plate of food to somebody who doesn't want to eat, they're going to look at that and go, that makes me sick to look at it. But can I do a quarter of that on a small plate? So it's going to be toddler portions frequently, and it's taking away any kind of like judgment about any of it. Is that there's no judgment on the caregiver side, there's no judgment on the patient side. It's a more healthy discussion about how much I can eat, and it's going to be this baby amount, and that's going to be okay on both sides.
It's so interesting, Mary, because when people ask me about, as far as getting into shape or even losing weight, the same exact conversation happens. It's like a lot of people will eat a fair amount of food in a very short period of time, as opposed to a lot of small meals. So it just sounds like, regardless of where you are in life, a lot of small meals are always going to trump one gigantic meal, just to allow the body to absorb those nutrients a little more effectively.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of us can understand the journey that they're on unless we've experienced this ourselves. And so the caregiver needs to understand there's a reason why they can't eat. And there's a reason why this is happening. It's not just the patient doesn't want to eat. The patient would like to eat, but it's got to be the right amount. It's got to be the right food. It's got to be what the patient can look at and be like, okay, I can move through that. I can take a couple of bites. I can walk away and come back, take a couple of bites. I can walk away. That's all. Yeah, that's okay.
Absolutely. No, we've all been there, depending upon if I grew up, my best friend's Italian, and I would go to his family's like Thanksgiving or Christmas or what have you, and it would be the whole living room, huge table, and just so much food. I would almost turn around because I was wrestling at the time and I wasn't eating much food. And I was like, whew, that is almost too much. And then they grab you like a good Jewish mother does, and she's like, just eat more food. And you're like, I can't. So I get a very small portion so the food doesn't touch each other. Mary Eve, are you the type of person where your food shouldn't touch each other during Thanksgiving? I mean, nobody's here. It's just the two of us.
No, everything is touching everything.
All right, very good.
I've got another question.
Okay.
Nancy Brown for Mary Eve.
Okay.
At the last event, Mary Eve mentioned something about how much a person can absorb protein anytime. Can you go over this? I usually put protein powder in my milk latte. Is this too much at once?
So we just talked about 30 grams is about where you kind of want to live, less than that. So it depends on how much protein is in the latte and how much protein is in the protein powder, and just do the math. And if it's less than 30, we're good to go.
3 at a time, multiple times a day.
At one sitting.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, very good. So how about things with salinity? Because what I'm doing right now, Mary Eve, is I'm adding some capers, which are brined, and a little bit of salt water. But I also have some mustard. Would either of these things be disruptive to a person's GI tract at that time?
Capers could be possibly. difficult to digest, but you could use just some of the brine that's in it and not the caper itself.
Okay.
Mustard should be fine. And you know, the other thing, and Chef, you do this so well, is that the different taste components are all there in a balance, and taste changes can happen with treatment. And so I usually tell patients, so a taste bud, a sensation, sour, salt, bitter, sweet. So what was something that tasted good to you recently? And I had a patient this morning, it was citrus. So orange and lemon were really, really appealing to her. And I'm like, okay, well, let's think about that. Can I add a marmalade to something? Can I squeeze a lemon into something? You know, can I have mandarin oranges at the same time I'm eating? Because mandarin oranges are all good for, you know, gastric patients. And her eyes just lit up like I wasn't even thinking any of that. Like, but that all sounds appealing. So I love this, adding a little bit of acid to something, a little bit of sweet to something, you know, a little bit sour to something. And that's important for patients in treatment because their taste buds can be amok, is what I call it.
Absolutely.
It's muck, amok, amok.
Absolutely. I mean, one of my favorite salad dressings is actually just a bit of either lemon juice or orange juice, using the zest, which has a lot of essential oils in there as well. And even the orange segments themselves, which can be really lovely as far as nutrition and flavor, a little bit of acidity, natural pop, hydration, you know, all those things that it amazes me how many people just go to the grocery store and just get whatever salad dressing off of their grocery aisle. And I know that you're a huge proponent of making your own salad dressings, Mary Eve.
Yep, I huge. And that way I can control what it is.
Yeah.
Like if I like something that's a little bit more salty, I can go that path. If I like something that's a little bit sweeter, I can add some honey and I can go that path. So I encourage people, and they last, right? So I can make a jar of it, stick it in my fridge, pull it out for a marinade, pull it out for a salad, pull it out to dip something in. And this is condiments. This is the world of condiments. So condiments are flavor bombs, right, Chef? So if I'm eating something and it's not tasting right to me, can I pull out a condiment to add to something to see if it'll elevate the flavor of it and make it more enjoyable? And if it's more enjoyable from a flavor standpoint, I can get through it. I'm enjoying what I'm eating. It's going to be a better process of eating more.
Yeah, big time. Absolutely.
I have one follow-up, Mary Eve from Nancy again about the protein. So if greater than 30, wasted or harmful, question mark.
Not harmful and not wasted. It's just you're looking to get the protein to support cells, blood cells, white cells, red cells, muscle mass, healing of mouth, maybe healing of gut. If it's above 30, it's not wasted. It's just you want to use that protein in the most effective way to support your health.
Okay, very good. And what about celery? I remember, you know, back at Nutrition 101, they were talking about celery as being one of those things that can help kind of cleanse your distal GI tract, your colon, things like that. How is this as far as those strings that are in celery? Are those easy to digest, or is it one of those things you want to keep away from?
Yeah, so celery, because of the strings, can be harder, but you can. No, put it back. All of these plants also support your microbiome, right? So you want to eat foods that your microbiome also eat.
Yeah.
And so eating vegetables supports a healthy microbiome, which is your bacteria. The thing about celery is if you sometimes you can take the strings off and really soft cook it. It can sit, but raw, it's not going to sit if I'm in treatment or if I'm in post-op.
Okay.
So yeah, but you know, you could also, if you're making a soup, you could put the celery in it and then strain it off, and you're getting the celery component to it, but I'm not going to get the actual celery.
Absolutely. But you make a very good point as far as the water soluble vitamins and minerals and things like that. And I'm a huge proponent of having, stocks and broths, to finish things with. So for example, you're talking about risotto or, any types of, if I were to make a sweet potato puree, for example, instead of just adding water, I can add chicken stock or bone broth or any of those things that have a little bit more nutrition to add to it than just water.
Absolutely. If I'm blending something, I'm not just going to blend it with water. I'm going to use some high protein milk. I'm going to use some bone broth. I'm going to do something that's going to make a difference in it.
Okay, very good.
So what have you done in that glass bowl?
Yeah, I was just kind of in my own world, wasn't I? Let me just find out, bring you guys up to speed here. So in this glass bowl, I had, of course, the bacon, which we haven't touched yet, the potatoes, which are still over here that we discussed already. So these are on the side. In here, I had some diced shallot, some white wine vinegar. We talked about capers. If you don't want to use the capers, as many of you are talking about, you use that brine. And then a little bit of mustard. I do like Dijon mustard, and this is a whole grain Dijon. I like a little bit of texture, which is nice in there. When you bite into something, it has a little pop, a little bit of texture. And mostly if you decide not to go for that celery, it's a wonderful little pop that you have in there. And some extra virgin olive oil. So all the things that are happening right here is essentially this incredible little flavor bomb that we have going on. We have the shallot, which has a touch of heat and a little bit of crunch. If your shallot has a tendency to be a little on the hot side, like heat as far as heat, the vinegar or any sort of acid will tame that down quite a bit. So what I did is I add a little bit of white wine vinegar to that shallot, and it has a tendency to macerate. It breaks down the tissue, which I assume make it a little easier to digest, but definitely brings that heat down and tames that down a little bit. This would work with so many different things. It just so happens it works beautifully with a German potato salad. Okay, you can let that sit for probably up to maybe 2 or 3 days in the fridge if you wanted to, if you had the refrigerated space. This is really nice just to have on file. I already have the potatoes and everything, and just like some of the other salads I've made in the past, you can just have them in the fridge and toss it when you're ready to serve. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just continue with this particular salad. Okay, this salad is just lovely. The potatoes have a tendency to soak up all of those flavors that we have in here right now, which include, of course, the brine, as Mary was talking about, capers. We have some celery. The potatoes go in. I went ahead and made the bacon ahead of time. And I did, unfortunately, discard all that bacon fat, so we cannot make some popcorn.
No
this time
popcorn.
around, but maybe the next time we'll make popcorn. Mary Eve, growing up, my mom, I'm the youngest of 3 boys, as I mentioned before. And to keep us occupied, one of the things she would do, and it's an absolute health hazard looking back, and she would make popcorn in a big pot, but with no lid.
Yep.
And we would all go running around, and popcorn would just be showering all over us. In hindsight, probably a terrible idea, and definitely like a burn issue, most likely. But that's one of the things I remember about popcorn, is having just.
She was trying to tell you something.
Maybe she was trying to tell me something. That's a good point, Sarah. All right, moving on. One of the things that I talked about earlier and absolutely love, eggs. There's got to be an eggophile. There's got to be an egg lover word for that. But I steam these eggs. A perfect hard-boiled egg to me is about 10 minutes steaming. All I did was took a little bit of aluminum foil, made like a little halo, and put it in this medium-sized pot with about 1 inch of water. And I just placed the eggs, the raw eggs, on top of the foil. So I don't have to get the steamer basket or anything out, because the steam is just steaming at the constant temperature. If you were to steam your eggs, and sometimes it turns out a little underdone, a little overdone, steaming is the best way to go as opposed to boiling, because let's say I have boiling water, I put a dozen eggs in there, the temperature of the water drops down. By the time it comes up to a boil, it's different than if you only put 6 eggs or 2 eggs. But steam is always consistent, okay? Plus, I like the protein in eggs, and I like the flavor. So for this one, I have 4 eggs that I steamed beautifully. I'm going to go ahead and just rough chop it.
And easier to peel when they're steamed, right?
So much easier to peel. Absolutely. Very good point, Sarah. So after you pull them out of the steaming basket, or, if you want to do what I did, which is just the aluminum foil, you would put them in an ice bath that shocks them. And when they're cool enough to handle, the peels just come right off. I mean, look at this. I'm going to put this student this on. Look at these beauties. I mean, just flawless. Look at that.
That's good.
I mean, they're not hacked. They're not hacked to pieces. They're just so pretty and nice and smooth. And so when all your guests are like, how did you do that? You just steam them. 10 minutes for a perfect hard-boiled egg. Okay. Is there a better way to prepare eggs? I would assume fried eggs may not be the best way, or maybe I'm wrong, Mary.
No, so I mean, if you're in treatment, eggs are really easy to digest.
Right.
But they have to be hard cooked. We can't have any. Yep, you're good. As you were cutting them, I'm like, are they hard cooked? Because I was going to yell at you if they weren't. Because we want to reduce any risk of getting salmonella with treatment.
Yeah.
Because if our immune system is not great, that's going to be a really hard pass to go. So hard cooked, deviled eggs, hard scrambled, hard boiled, all
Great.
yay, good protein, easy to digest, and can make a really nice snack too.
Okay. Very good.
Nancy asked, have you ever done sous vide eggs?
Sous vide eggs, I absolutely have, depending upon, like, for example, if you want to go, like the Asian route, you can go ahead. If you've ever had this, lovely dishes where the egg has this really thin layer of flavor on it, you would sous vide the egg until it's really, really soft, peel it, and then put it in.
Soy sauce?
Yeah, soy sauce.
Sous vide egg?
So delicious.
Yeah.
You can do that sort of thing, but that is a softer egg. I found that steaming is the most consistent as far as what Mary Eve was talking about. If your treatment is to the point where you really should have hard-boiled eggs, steaming is always the best way to go. And again, mainly because as far as consistency, steam is always consistent. It's 212 degrees. It can't go any higher as far as steam, and it just cooks the eggs all the way through. And to be honest, we have hard-boiled eggs in our refrigerator at pretty much at all times, just in case we feel like making a little snack. And it's a really fast thing to have, and it's clean and delicious every single
Are
time.
you adding mayo to that?
Hey,
Yeah, let's do that.
chef, the other thing is, and I have a lot of people do this if they like it, is to take bone broth and boil it and then drop the egg in it like an egg drop soup. And that can
Stop it.
Delicious.
Stop it.
really, really healing and protein and an easy way to get it in.
That's amazing. And I've seen sweet potato noodles, in my local Asian, grocery store. I would assume that would be pretty good. Now I'm just sort of like, my mind has exploded with what you've just told
I
me.
know.
I pull it together, Mary Eve.
All right, question for Mary Eve. As a gastric cancer survivor, I am confused about what food I should eat every day and what I should avoid.
So I get this asked, what's the one thing I should eat every single day as a survivor? And I'm like, it's not the one thing, it's all the things. And we kind of started out, at the beginning of this discussion today about eating these colors. And so cancer survivors should use a plant-based diet if they can. That doesn't mean they don't do animal. It just means that I have the majority of what I eat comes from the planet. And with the vegetables, like we talked about the kale, some people are like, I eat kale every day because I know that's going to fight my cancer. I'm like, then you're missing out on things that are orange, like the sweet potatoes, or white, like the leek, or you really want to get the variety of the color. Each of those color gives you a different cancer fighter, partially cooked, some raw, but it's not the one thing, it's all the things. And then getting protein in, that's the other part of this, but I'm not going to go heavy with, meats and those kinds of things. I'm going to try to get some plant proteins in. Can I tolerate beans? Can I do, lentils? Can I do nut butters? Can I do seeds? Those are all plant proteins that also provide protein, but also provide vitamins and minerals that are important. So it's not the one thing, it's all the things.
Got it.
And that's why if you sign up and register for these events, you get a whole recipe booklet with so many recipes from years past with great variety.
That are delicious
That are
and
delicious.
chef and dietitian approved.
Yeah. That's true.
That's true. Okay, so we're getting toward the end. I don't want to freak out because we have so many different types of foods that are pretty much done. This one I've just gone ahead and finished. Super easy. Again, if you did what I did, which is essentially just peel and pre-cook those potatoes, everything else you can just make a la minute. You can just bang this whole thing out and have a lovely. Here we go. Here's this one. Just a lovely. Lovely salad. What I did at the end, depending upon whether you were from the south or the north, I went ahead and did a little squirt of mayo on there. If you're one of those people who says, my mom will never serve potato salad without mayo, and you just can't do it because it's against your family's religion, then yeah, put a little squirt of mayo on there. But you don't necessarily have to, because as far as the texture, you've got already have that vinaigrette, a little bit of olive oil, the mustard, which is lovely. And again, I love your idea of saving these the fluids that are in here. This caper brine is a lot like a lot of people will use pickle brine as well in a lot of recipes. So I think it's very smart. So thank you for that heads up, Mary Eve.
Don't throw your pickle juice out.
Yeah.
Don't.
So no, I guess for now I won't. So we have German style potato salad. That's just chilling right there.
What's happening with our
Oh, our soup. Yeah, our soup's just been cooking right along, hasn't it? There we go. That looks lovely. Now, I know that this is one of Mary's favorite. If you don't have one of these, you gotta get one because it'll just make her face, shine like the sun because it makes us both very, very happy. It's quite easy. This is an immersion wand, okay? It comes off very easy to clean, right? It'll also, usually they're sold with a little tiny mini food processor that you put it on the end, so you don't have to buy a big food processor. You would normally just put this right inside the pot of soup. The only things that I would have to remove is the bay leaf. You probably don't want to blend that up, and the thyme. And I went ahead and just put whole stems of thyme that are very easy to pull out, okay? As far as flavor, as far as texture, one of the things we've talked about before is cheese. What I've done is taken a little bit of goat's cheese. I just love the flavor of goat's cheese, not a lot, about 2 tablespoons, and also a little bit of salt and pepper. And then lemon juice. We talked about citrus, Mary Eve, a little bit of lemon juice, not a lot, maybe 2 teaspoons. And I put it inside of a blender, okay?
While you serve up the soup.
Yes,
I
please.
have a comment. Maybe a question in here. This is from Donna. Hi, watching from Sarasota.
Yeah.
My husband is 2 years post TG and doing well. I have just been told to follow a Mediterranean diet, and he says that the meals I have been making are perfect for someone without a stomach.
It's that plant-based thing. It's perfect. Perfect.
All right, fantastic. I mean, one of the ways that actually the main reason I'm even here, I even got my foot in with Debbie's Dream Foundation is one of my very, very close friends, Hans Rufert. And for those of you that have been with Debbie's Dream Foundation for a very long time would know him. He is the famous chef without a stomach. And we have had some very interesting times together, raising money for Gastric Cancer Foundation and just having a blast together. This guy has the funniest personality. He is just so funny, this guy.
And he eats a lot like that Mediterranean style.
He does. He's a lot of Mediterranean style, but he's sort of, he's an interesting character. He can have
eat everything, which is unusual. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a really an unusual dude where he has, he can have a cup of coffee, he can have 1 beer. It's really interesting. He has no stomach and 95% of his esophagus is gone. And when you see him without a shirt, it's a very interesting conversation to be had, and he will leave you doubled over with laughter. He is so funny, this guy. A lovely dark sense of humor.
Let's show what that is there.
Oh, very good. So what I've done so far,
This is your asparagus soup.
this is asparagus soup blended, okay? Blended, pulverized, everything is lovely, okay? What is that?
I'm gonna put it right so you can.
Oh, very good, very good. So this already has the 2 tablespoons of goat's cheese.
Mhm.
What I did is I used some older whole wheat sourdough. I cut the crust off of it and I hand tore the sourdough. And this is one of the things that blows people's minds. It's not being wasteful. Little olive oil, salt, pepper, and I roasted it about 425 until it's lightly toasted. So the outside's crunchy, but the inside's still nice and soft. It's amazing. And if you want a homemade Caesar salad, this is just the way to do it. So this really flavorful asparagus soup or cauliflower soup or potato soup, whatever type of green vegetable that you have, with a little bit of goat's cheese. If you don't want to do goat's cheese, fine. A touch of chives and some bread on top of there, okay? So I've got a couple things going on. Don't forget about the very first thing we started on, because TikTok, it's almost breakfast time. I do have this lovely, you could use, as we were talking about earlier with Mary Eve, you could use chard, you could use baby spinach. I happen to have kale here, but let's pretend it's something else. This is a wonderful, wonderful way to get your vegetables in, and it's a one-pot wonder. I'm using, the orange sweet potato, which I happen to really, really love. And again, for those of you that are even watching your blood sugar level, you can just go crazy with sweet potatoes. There we go. All right. Color. Look at the color on that.
Yeah, could throw
Yep.
an egg on that.
Throw an egg on it. Dark green, dark orange. You can do carrots. There's a lot of different things you could use. And Mary, what about sesame seeds? Toasted sesame seeds.
it should be okay it should be okay. I mean, I don't recommend seeds like post gastrectomy, but I'm thinking black beans in that.
Mm.
Okay, there we go. I'm gonna put a can of black beans on top of this.
Put your sesame seeds on it.
Well, the one thing I think that we continuously talk about, Mary Eve, is how you can make this your own. You don't have to do the kale. Clearly, you can do the baby spinach, the baby bok choy, or no green at all. It's really, really lovely.
One last thing you
I
guys.
have 3 things. One more thing, I promise you dessert, 2 ingredients with a blender, okay? 2 ingredients. I have banana, really lovely banana. I like the one with some light, a couple dappled of the black speckles on those, because it means the sugar content's really lovely. Let me show you this. I went ahead and peeled it, chopped it into little pieces. We're good to go. I also have some full-fat, unsweetened coconut milk. About a 1/4 cup of this, and this goes in. Look at that bad boy, okay? That's the recipe. You can write that on the back of your wrist.
Yummo.
Thing,
Yummo, right.
okay? Blend that up. And for those of you that have never seen our dog, when I turn this on, he may show his face. He gets very pumped up, okay? We'll see what happens. Let me show you this first. He shows up like he just knows it's time to eat, and he just,
Know something good is.
Oh, look at him wagging his tail. He's so
Right.
happy.
Yeah.
he's pumped. He's like, oh my gosh, look at all this fun stuff.
I know he smells eggs, bacon,
For the
sweet
sake of
potatoes.
sound, I'm gonna stop right there because it's not completely smooth. But do know that when you make this at home and you're not concerned about a dog running around, just blend this until it's completely smooth. I've got a little bit of chunk still left in that, but I think that's okay for the time being, right? And it's super easy because again, you already have a couple of these ingredients. Again, it's on the chunkier side, but I'm just gonna stop only because of the sound issue. And I like to make sure that we take care of any questions for myself or for Mary Eve, so we don't leave you guys in the lurch, okay? 2 ingredients, really simple, even with a little bit of salt, but I found this recipe works every single time. These ingredients have a lot of color, yeah? Oh, very good, thank you. They have a lot of color, you know, they're seasonal. You can switch them up depending upon what you have in your local farmer's market. So they have the most nutrition, they're most digestible. Blending them, of course, always helps. Going for the most colors that you can find, as Mary Eve was talking about, has the most nutrition. And as a chef, I'm hoping you can find the most flavor. But what Sarah was saying, when you go to the website and you sign up, we will send you, or they will send you, an incredible, it's quite thick actually.
Binder.
Sort of a binder, it's like a Rolodex of so many different recipes, not just mine, but other chefs who have been fortunate enough to participate in these, okay? So Mary Eve, I mean, you've thrown so much knowledge on not
Oh my
just us,
God.
but on me as a chef as well. And I thank you for that and for your time.
I learned a lot today.
So do I.
Hi.
Yeah,
I didn't know about the bendy asparagus. Now I'm gonna be like, oh, okay. Now I understand.
Yeah, I know, because when you see them going like this, they're looking for sunlight. They've been in storage for way too long. You know, but other than that, I hope everyone has had their questions taken care of. If you have any culinary questions, clearly for Mary Eve or myself, you can go to all of our social media, which is the same as my name, Chef Nathan Lyon. Send us a message and we'll get back to you right away. Doesn't have to be about these recipes, it could be about other recipes.
Also through the Debbie Dream Foundation, Facebook.
Yep.
Email, YouTube. Ask away.
And the fact that people come in and are here with us today from all around the world, it's just so humbling. And I want to thank everyone for their time, for their great questions, both for myself and for Mary Eve. And I just couldn't do it without you guys. So thank you so very, very much. And I know that we have a bunch of sponsors we want to thank. And thanks to Sarah and everyone for their time. Mary Eve, it is always a joy to share time with you.
Yeah. We
Thank you
got-
so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have another one coming up in December, so
Hot diggy.
stay tuned for the final one for 2023.
The-
Nutrition.
The final battle of nutrition will happen in December.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you,
Bye.
WG Foundation. And stick around and I'll throw a sponsor slide up so we can acknowledge our sponsors.
Big thanks to the sponsors.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, have a
Thank
lovely
you.
day.